Boy, howdy. I did not see that twist coming. No, I actually didn't. If you watch my reviews, I brought up that people were like very suspicious of the dimension. They were kind of looking at it going like, this dimension doesn't seem all white. After people noticed it, I went back and I looked at the episodes and I was like, oh yeah, I see what they're talking about. But like, wouldn't it have almost been funnier if they were just completely overthinking it and that wasn't what was going on in this dimension? But yeah, no, they were exactly right. It seems like. So let's get into the episode. We'll obviously come across that topic again. So the episode like immediately just starts out all weird with this like weird fourth wall breaking edit of the droopy faces of the kids. But even like this scene kind of puts you with a sense of unease because at some point during the scene, they actually drop a needle drop and it doesn't feel right. And the thing about James Gunn is that his needle drops always feel organic, but I'm pretty sure he purposefully made the needle drop in this scene feel off. And then you obviously get the droopy faces. It's definitely effective. Although I do kind of feel like it feels a little out of place in the show because it's not like, I mean, obviously the show is very wacky and weird, but not to this extent. So I don't know. It was effective, but it also felt a little out of place, in my humble opinion. We get this really funny scene with Vigilante's mom, and I will say this: just the comedy in general in this episode really like hit for me. I feel like a lot of the comedy this season has been very hit or miss. I know that pretty much all of the jokes in this episode were genuinely really funny. I like that you see where Vigilante gets his like I guess his tism from. I don't know if that's a proper use of the word or if it applies to Vigilante, but just the fact that the mom like could not take no for an answer. She could not take a hint. It's like, yeah, you totally see where his where his behavior comes from. We also see Vigilante's like secret hideout. I love the lore of him like taking out like many different like drug lords and taking their drugs and their money, but refusing to use it because it's blood money. All of that was really awesome. We also go back to they travel into the Earth X, I think people have said it's called. So yeah, I think it's Earth X. And Harcourt meets Peacemaker's brother. And it's just like, she's immediately just not like the Harcourt from this dimension. And you can tell that he's immediately weirded out by her behavior, which is really fun. And you get the, everybody else in the background making faces and being like, oh, no, don't go with him. This episode really hit the nail on the head in terms of like drama, tension, comedy, and having it all intermingle into one thing, where I feel like the beginning of the season was kind of struggling in that regard. We also have Vigilante meeting his doppelganger or variant, if we want to use MCU terms, and we learned that his variant is actually a good guy. I feel like they were teasing or hinting that the Vigilante's variant was probably going to end up being like awful because of how much they were hyping up, Vigilante wanting to meet his variant. I kind of like the twist of, no, he's actually a good guy and he's with the Sons of Liberty, who are now pretty much confirmed to be good guys, right? They're like trying to fight back against the Nazis. So yeah, I'm pretty sure like throughout the next two episodes, we're going to get like fun action scenes with Vigilante and Vigilante like fighting together. I feel like that's going to end up being a lot of fun. But, we learned that in this universe, Vigilante and Peacemaker are actually arch enemies. So I wonder if they've had like confrontations in the past and stuff like that. We also get this bald bastard, Lex Luthor, showing up in the episode, and Nicholas Hoult. I gotta say, this is definitely one of the cool parts about Nicholas Hoult isn't an unknown actor, but getting non-A-list actors to play your big roles, because that James Gunn was able to negotiate with Nicholas Hoult that, like, in the contract, he's like, hey, I own your ass. It's like, when I tell you that you're going to be in an HBO Max show, you're going to be in an HBO Max show. Whereas in, like, Marvel, it might be a little harder to get, like, Chris Evans or whatever to show up in a Disney Plus show because they weren't able to negotiate that in the contracts. Tom Holland's not going to show up in a Disney Plus show. But, like, yeah, you could totally see David Cornsweet showing up in an HBO Max show, and it's not going to be a big deal because it's already going to have been in the contract. because they were able to negotiate all that before, David Cornsweet got clouded up as Superman. So yeah, I love the fact that Lex Luthor can just randomly show up and it just is Lex Luthor. It is Nicholas Hoult. And we learn that this is how Lex Luthor is going to lead into Man of Tomorrow, where we know that Man of Tomorrow is going to be a movie where Superman and Lex have to team up to fight a greater threat, probably Brainiac. And we now know that Lex is going to get into the position to do that by helping Argus find Peacemaker. So I think James Gunn is so far doing a really good job of having his interconnected universe where if you watch everything, it does enhance the experience, right? Like watching Superman, learning about Lex, seeing how Lex got into prison, and then going into Peacemaker. And so you understand, why Lex is in prison. You understand, like his disdain for metahumans, and you understand, like, why Frank Grillo would want to go into get him to help, because he knows that Lex built the universal portals. It's like you understand all of that. But if you just watch Superman, you're going to be fine with just watching Superman and then going into Man of Tomorrow. You don't necessarily need to watch Peacemaker. If you just watch Peacemaker, you don't necessarily need to watch Superman to understand what's going on in the story here. It's not like, the example that people always use for the MCU being like Multiverse of Madness, where it's like, yeah, you could watch, Multiverse of Madness without having seen WandaVision, but you're not really going to understand where Wanda's coming from, and it is probably going to feel jarring. Whereas I think James Gunn so far has done a really good job of that not really being the case with any of his projects so far. We'll see how he does in the future, but so far, you don't need to have seen Creature Commandos in order to understand Superman, in order to understand Peacemaker. You can watch all of these things individually, but if you do watch them all, you are going to get a greater appreciation. We also get this really great emotional scene between Amelia Harcourt and Peacemaker. They like actually talk through some of their issues. Harcourt actually opens up, and all of their feelings get laid out in the open, which I think is very good to see. Man, John Cena, he's just a good actor. I know we always keep on saying that. I think pretty soon I'm just going to stop even bringing it up because it's just going to be a known thing that John Cena is a good actor. But yeah, it's still just very impressive that he's grown to the point that he can be the leading man, he can carry a show, and he can have these really good scenes, these really good emotional scenes with Jennifer Holland. And so this is where they reveal that this is indeed like a world where the Nazis are in control. I've heard people saying that in the comics, Earth 10 is an alternate universe where the Nazis won World War II. So presumably that's what this is. This is like an adaptation of whatever storyline that is. And yeah, I like this whole scene with Adebayo running away from the people, and man, you have that scene where Peacemaker's brother, he's like, a black got out, and it's just like how the way that James Gunn directed it just felt so terrifying. I am kind of scared to see how this is all going to be portrayed in the next two episodes, because I mean, when you just think about how James Gunn was not scared to show like animal cruelty in Guardians 3, it's like I feel like he's not going to be scared to show really horrible stuff in the next two episodes. We'll see. There's obviously there's a difference between animals and human beings, but my guess is that he's not going to hold back when it comes to showing off the cruelty of this universe, and it's probably going to be really disturbing. So we'll see how he handles it. But either way, they've been hyping up episode 6. They only sent out the first 5 episodes to critics, and I anticipate that these next 2 episodes are going to be pretty wild and wacky and insane. So be sure to subscribe to hear my thoughts on it, but also let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.